Hey, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to crochet our Everyday Ragg Cardigan. The yarn that I'm using for this pattern is Mary Maxim Starlette Ragg, and I'm working with the color brown, and this is a worsted weight number 4 yarn. You'll also need 6 35mm buttons if you're adding buttons to your cardigan. You will need 2 hook sizes for this pattern, a 5.5mm crochet hook as well as a 6mm. And these are streamline hooks from Furls Crochet, and I'm using the matte gold in this tutorial. You will also need 4 stitch markers to mark our increases. So this cardigan is worked top down in a raglan style, and it is seamless, so it's a really great pattern for beginners. I'm working in double crochet and half double crochet stitches, and we do have a little bit of a better fit around the neckline of this pattern by doing some longer stitches at the back. It's going to give you a little bit more coverage up the back of your neck and help the overall fit of the piece. So I've worked already up my yoke. I'm going to show you how to do this. This is how the yoke is going to look. And once you get the yoke done for the size that you're working on, I'll then show you how we're going to join up the yoke. But let's get started with the beginning now. I do want you to follow along with your pattern for the size that you're working on. In this tutorial, I'll be working through the size medium. So I'm going to begin with the 6mm crochet hook. Put a slip knot on your hook, and I'm going to chain out a total of 37. So once you have your 37 chains, we're going to work single crochets across. Now I do like to turn my work and work into the back bump or leg of the chain so that I can see the nice stitch. Now if you're struggling with that, you can also just go through the back loop of the chain. But I'm going to turn and work through those back humps, and I'm going to work single crochets across. So you will have a total of 36. So now once you've worked all the way across, we're going to chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to begin doing some increases, and we'll be using our stitch marker. So we're going to start out with double crochets. So I'm going to work 3 double crochets in the first stitch. So this will be our first increase. So I'm going to add a stitch marker to the center stitch. So the center stitch will be the stitch that we increase each row. Now I'm going to work across 6 stitches, and this will be for my sleeve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So all double crochets, 6 stitches. The next stitch will receive another increase. So we'll put 3 stitches. Then we will mark the center of the 3 stitches. Now I'll be working the back section, and I'll be working a total of 20. Okay, I've worked across 20 and I'll be doing another increase. So 3 double crochet in the next stitch. And we'll mark the center stitch with our marker. And now I'm going to work 6 for our other sleeve. Okay, and you should have 1 stitch remaining at this point. And we'll do our last increase in that stitch. So 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And we'll mark the center stitch. So now where we have the markers is where we will be doing our increases as we work the pattern. Now, in some of my raglan cardigans, I have a start of a front. For those that prefer not to have any beginning part to the front of a raglan cardigan, you want to start with no stitches for your front. So now the increase, this will mark our first stitch of our front. So we're just going to have a nice gradual V for the cardigan. So there'll be no part that comes across here. Sometimes I'll have designed a cardigan that way to place the hood so it gives me more stitches for the hood. This would be not a lot of stitches to make a hood. So having that little piece in the front allows for a hood to be placed with stitches. Now we could add a hood and increase our stitches that the hood goes up large enough with this particular pattern. So if you're wanting to alter another pattern, I do get this question often. To remove that front piece, all you need to do is remove those stitches that are worked for the fronts, and you need to do a continual increase in order to increase them to eventually equal the back or a little bit less than the back if you're adding a band. So now what we're going to do is start into the front, but all of the front stitches are going to be worked at this point in half double crochets. So this allows for better shaping around the neck. So we want the back a little bit higher than we want the front. So we're going to do about 5 rows with double crochets across this section before the pattern all switches to half double. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. So at this point, you just need to remember on this side of the marker, so the front part, we are doing half double crochets. Once we do the increase, we're doing all of them in double. So we're going to start, we're going to also be increasing this row. So we're going to do 2 half double crochets in the first stitch. So these 2 stitches are for our front panel. Now we're going to increase and we'll do double crochets. So 1, 2, 3. And we'll add that marker to the center stitch. Then we'll work across to the next marker. We'll do an increase in the marker. So I'll work this across. I'll just continue since it's only a short section. And we'll do 3 double crochets in our marked stitch. Add our marker back into the middle stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to work across. I'll do my increase. I'm going to work across all the way over to this marker and then I'll meet you up again. Okay, I've come to this marker. The last marker, we're going to add 3. Double crochet, add the marker to the middle stitch. And now we're doing half double crochets in the last stitch. We're doing 2 because we're increasing. Okay, so that is row 2 complete. So we now have 54 stitches. So our front is 2 stitches. Our sleeve is 8 stitches. Our back is 22. Our other sleeve is 8. Our other front is 2. But then we have 12 stitches worked for all of the increases. So these sections actually do go up by 2 stitches if we look at it that way. But in total, we'll have 54 stitches. Now, in the pattern, I do include row by row charts that can really help you to track this as you go. And it also gives you, providing that you are on track with your gauge, it does give you measurements as well. So that is helpful if you need to modify the sizing that I have done in the pattern. So I will show you where we stop for each of the sizes. Extra small all the way through 5X, but it is really easy to look at. If you look at size medium and you see the sleeve width and you feel like it's going to be too big on your body or not big enough, you can always make some alterations. So if you need it larger, you could add some more increases. If you need it smaller, you could do some rows that don't have that increase. So for instance, when you come to a marker, instead of adding 3 stitches, you could add 2. So if you were not going to increase your sleeve section right here, you could do 2 stitches, adding your marker then to the first stitch. So you're only increasing your back, not your sleeve, okay? So I have gone with average sizing, but if you need to adjust for your body, it's a good idea to take a look at the chart I've provided so that you can easily make a modification. Okay, so let's go on to row 3. So we're going to chain 1. We're going to work half double crochets across, and we're going to increase the first stitch. So 2 in the first, 1, 2. So now we've gone up to a total of 4 stitches, and then we're going to increase. And we're doing a double crochet. So work double crochets across, increase 3 double crochets in each of your markers. Okay, so I've worked across, I've done my increase, added my marker, and then we're going to be doing half double crochets across the front. So 1, 2, and then 2 in the last stitch. So now we've increased our front up to 1, 2, 3, 4, plus our increase is a total of 5. Okay, so after row 3, you're going to have 64 stitches. So we're increasing by 10 stitches. We're increasing 2 for every increase, which is 8. And as long as we're doing the increases on our front panels, that is an additional 2 stitches. So in total, 10. Now, what I want you to do is go ahead and keep working your rows. You're going to do 2 more with double crochets, marker to marker, only half double crochets in the front panel. And then once you get to row 6, you're just going to do everything in half double crochets. And all this is going to do is make this back sit a little bit higher and help it fit a little bit more, a little bit better. So go ahead and continue working up 5 more rows with your double crochets, and then on row 6, start into just half doubles. Now also, we are going to stop increasing after row 9. So starting with row 10, you won't need to do any more increases to that very front panel. So the front will only continue to increase by 1. So in total, each row then goes up by 8, only our increases for our 4 markers. So if we take a look at the yoke that I've been working on, you can see it sort of lays out this way because we've got those double crochets for this section. And then if you look at our increase goes fairly sharp, so it comes out, and then our stitches aren't going to increase to exactly the total of the back because we're going to have a band, so that is going to make up the difference. So if you sort of lay it out that it looks more straight, you have a little bit of gapping here at the front, but it'll be a fairly drastic increase up to row 9, and then we won't need to do any more increases. So then it looks like this as you continue to work your yoke. Okay, so for the medium size, I need a total of 20 rows. So I'm working on my final row. So it's a good idea to, again, make sure that your stitch count matches up with what I have on the charts. So I'm going to work across in half double crochet, and I should have a total of 28 stitches across my front. And that will include the increase that I'm going to do. So I've worked across 27, and then I'll do my increase. Okay, so that then gives me 28 stitches on this side. Then I'll go ahead and work my sleeve, and my increase here starts the first stitch. So I've worked across 45, and with my increase, I'll have 46 for my sleeve, which is about 16 inches. So that for my own arm gives me about 4 inches of ease, which I definitely like around this top part of my arm. And if you needed it a bit smaller, even this row, you could omit those increases. You could just have 2 stitches placed in your increase, putting this marker in the last stitch to eliminate a stitch here and a stitch here, or you could do that on a couple rows if you need your sleeve to be a bit smaller. If let's say you needed your sleeve a bit bigger by the time you get to this point, you know 16 inches isn't going to be enough, you could always space in some additional increases, and that will just solve that problem as well. Okay, so for the back, I've worked across 59, and with my increase, I'll have 60 stitches across the back. And for the medium size, we're going to have around 41 to 42 inches around the bust, so it's going to also accommodate my hips. So I'm going with an oversized fit so that I'm sure it's not only going to fit my bust and give me some ease so it's nice and comfortable, but it also will go around my hips as well. A suggestion for your hips, if you needed to go a little bit larger, you can always add increases after we join. So once we join the arm here, you could always maybe once you get down a little bit more, you can try this on as you go, so you can kind of judge at your waist when you want to start doing some increases. You could add some increases into your back and into your front if you need to have a little bit more ease around the hips. Just easily space them out. You could do, 2, 1 here, 1 here. You could do 4 by spacing them out sort of more evenly, really whatever you want. Once we join this up, we will be doing a long stretch all together. So we'll be working the front and the back at the same time. So just evenly spread them out, and you could do that over a few rows if you wanted. I have tried to give you some tips throughout this video as I've gone along so that you can customize your cardigan to best suit your body type. I am pretty familiar with how I like things to fit on my arms, my bust, and my hips. So making sure you have your measurements, even measuring a garment that you already have, a top maybe you really like, or cardigan, to kind of get an idea of the size of the arm, the size of the bust, and even the hips as well. So once you have your measurements and you have the measurements of how you like a garment to fit, you can easily tweak any pattern. I mean, some patterns will have more ease than others, but you can always go up or down a size to usually accommodate if you prefer a different ease. If you like something a little bit more fitted, if I wanted this piece to be more fitted on myself, I would go down to the small, whereas the medium is going to be a nice comfy fit for myself. Okay, so once you have your yoke complete, I like to give it a try on and just make sure that it is fitting well. So I just we are going to have some underarm chains, but I put it on and make sure it's fitting well around my arm. The yoke length is good. And if you need to make any alterations, you want to do it at this point before you join it up. Now you can also join it and try it on and see how it fits at this point too. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. We're going to work the body section now. We're going to leave the armholes unworked. So how we're going to do that, we're going to work in each stitch across to our marker. So work your half double crochet stitches. Okay, so I've just removed my marker. I've worked across 28. And I'm going to work into the mark stitch for a total of 29 stitches. I'm going to chain 4. Okay, I'm going to skip over my sleeve section. And I'm going to work my first half double crochet into the marked stitch. I'm going to work across the back. So we have 60 stitches across the back, but if we include each of our marked stitches, we're going to have a total of 62. So I'm adding my 4 markers to the body of the cardigan rather than the sleeves, because I'd rather a little bit extra room on the body, not on my sleeves. But now if you needed a little bit more ease on your sleeves and you'd prefer to work those center stitches, the marked stitches, into the sleeve instead, you could do that as well. Gives you a little bit of flexibility here as to where you add those stitches. So I've come to my mark stitch. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to add my next stitch into the mark stitch. I'm going to chain 4, skipping over our next sleeve, and then I'm going to half double crochet into this mark stitch. And finish across my front panel. So you should have 29 stitches across the front panel. So now I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to work in half double crochets all the way across, making sure to do 1 half double crochet per chain. So 29 plus 4 plus 62 plus 4 plus 29, you should have 128 stitches in total for this size. So I've worked 29. Now I want to work in each chain across. And I'm going to continue with 62 stitches across the back. I'll work across my next chain and finish the front panel. Okay, so I've worked all the way across. Now what I'm going to do is just try it on and make sure that I'm happy with the fit, because if you try this on and you think that you need to have your arms a little bit snugger, something's not fitting right, or it's coming way too low, you may want to pull back your work. Remember, as I discussed earlier, you can always do some rows without increasing your sleeves if you need to. You could always, if this body section isn't big enough, we can always add, but this section fits correctly, can always add increases after. So if you have a larger bust, this sitting up at the top of your bust, and you need to go a little bit bigger to go around your bust, then you could just add in some extra stitches. We now have this long stretch we're working, and you could just add in some extra if you need it to be a little bit looser around the bust. So now what I love about a top down like this, you can continue working as many rows as you want for the length. You could make this a cute crop length cardigan. You can make it longer, add some pockets to make it nice and cozy, and even somewhere in between. So you have the ability to customize that length for your body and also customize your arm length. I'm going to go ahead and start on one of the sleeves so you can see how the sleeves are worked, and then I'm going to continue working my body off camera, and then I'll meet you back up to show you how to work the band. Okay, so now what you want to do is we do need to join to the wrong side. You can tell here, see how this row puffs up? That's a wrong side row. This is the right side row. I also marked my right side here just to keep me on track as well. So now what we're going to do, we want to join in on the wrong side, and I like to join at the underarm so that my seam is right at the underarm right here. So let's go ahead and find, you're going from this way, it'd be the third stitch, the third chain. So So I'm going to chain 1, work a half double crochet and a half double crochet. Then we need to find the first stitch of our sleeve, which is right here. But see how we have this gapping going across? We can do a decrease across that just so it kind of pulls it in. Otherwise, you could use your tail to sew that up later. So to do a decrease, we're going to yarn over, go through that space, pulling up a loop, go right into the first stitch of the sleeve, pull up a loop. So we have 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pulling through all 4. So that's the first stitch of the sleeve. You're now going to have 46 stitches in total around the sleeve. So 46 plus the 4 chains, we're going to have a total of 50 stitches. So it's a good idea just to count as you go, because that will help you when you get to this side. Okay, so I'm coming to the last stitch, which including our starting 2 is 48. So I know I need to decrease across this section. So we're going through, I've already yarned over, pull up a loop. We're just going to go in that space, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 4. And then we're doing a half double in the last 2, which will bring us up to 50 stitches. The last 2 chains. We're going to slip stitch to join, chain 1 and turn. Okay, so this round we're just going to work 1 half double crochet into every stitch around for a total of 50 stitches. So I'm going to work around this round at 50 stitches. I'm going to do 1 more round at 50 stitches, and then we're going to start into our decrease pattern. Okay, so I've worked 50. I'm going to slip stitch in our first half double to join, chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to work around another 50. So this is going to be our 3rd round. Okay, so I've worked around 50. I'm going to slip stitch in the first half double to join, chain 1. I'm going to do a half double crochet in the first stitch, and then I'm going to decrease across the next 2. So yarn over, go through, pull up a loop, go through the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 4. You're going to work all the way around to your last 3 stitches. Okay, I have 3 stitches remaining. We're going to do a decrease across the next 2. And a half double crochet in the last stitch. Slip stitch in our first half double to join, chain 1 and turn. We're now down to 48 stitches, so we're going to do 3 rounds at 48 stitches, and then we're going to repeat. So we'll do a decrease round and decreasing to 46 stitches, and then we'll do 3 rounds at 46 stitches. Then we'll do another decrease round, decreasing to 44 stitches. And then we do 3 rounds at 44 stitches. And you continue in that pattern. Make sure to refer to the written directions so that you're on track with the size that you're working on. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working my non-decrease rounds, continuing with my decreases, and I'll meet you up to let you know exactly how many rounds to do and how many stitches you want to decrease to. So I've been working on my sleeve and I'm coming to my last decrease round. And you could always omit this one depending on how tight you want your cuff. So I am reducing down to 30 stitches. So I need to come up to my last 3 and then I'm going to do a decrease and one final stitch. Okay, so that brings me down to 30 stitches. I'm going to slip stitch to join. And this round I'm going to chain 1 and work 1 single crochet into every stitch around. Okay, so I've worked around 30. I'm going to slip stitch in the first single crochet to join, and then I'm going to change over to my smaller hook, so the 5.5, and I'm going to do a cuff, a ribbed cuff, and it will be joined as you go. So I'm going to chain out a total of 9. And then a single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and in each chain across. So I have a total of 8, which is the same as the bottom band, and it measures about 2 inches. Okay, so now I'm going to skip the first stitch and I'm going to slip stitch into the next 2. Then you can skip your 2 slip stitches and work single crochets through the back loop of each stitch across. And it is a good idea to count your stitches as you go so that you don't lose track. You should have a total of 8. Chain 1 and turn, and then we're working single crochets through the back loop of each stitch across. And then I'll slip stitch in the next 2, and I'm just going to keep repeating this, working all the way around. So once I get around, I'll meet you up and we'll slip stitch this together. Okay, so I'm coming around. I've slip stitched into the last stitch because we need to end up at the top. So I'm going to work my way back up with my final row. So I have 30 rows, the same amount as I have stitches around the base. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is put the right sides facing. So I just fold the band like this so that I can get the right sides together. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm just going to slip stitch. So going through this row, the first stitch, to this row and the first stitch. So slip stitch down a total of 8. then you can fasten off and weave in that tail. And now if you want the cuff smaller, if you're working on one of the bigger sizes and you want a tighter cuff, you can always decrease on that single crochet round to make your cuff really whatever size you want. Okay, so I've been working on the cardigan and I'm gonna count the rows so I know this is my first row here. I'm just looking at the underarm to see where this row started. And I've worked a total of 48 because I want the cardigan fairly long, but you can of course make it whatever length you want. You can try it on as you go. And now what I'm going to do is finish off with a row of single crochet. So I'm back to my right side now. I'm going to work across in single crochet stitches. And that will be the setup for our join as you go band that we're going to do along the bottom. So once you work all the way across, we are going to just go right into the band. So I'm not going to fasten off. I'm going to chain out a total of 9. And then I'm going to work single crochets along the chain. So in the second chain from the hook, we'll work a single. And down the chain for a total of 8 stitches. And this will make the band about 2 inches in length. So now I'm going to turn and look at my work. So we're skipping the first stitch and I'm going to work into the front loops only of the next 2. And the reason I'm doing that, I'll show you. So slip stitch in the front loops only of the next 2, can turn, and then on the right side it's going to leave that little bit of a ridge. Because I'm slip stitching to the wrong side, you can't really notice with this yarn because it's so mixy, but if you were working a solid color, you would be able to notice that little ridge a little bit more and it just looks a little bit cleaner. Otherwise, you could fasten off, you could join back onto the right side and slip stitch across the right side, but this just saves us having to weave in that extra tail. We don't have to fasten off. So I'm gonna do this little trick just to make it look a little cleaner. You can now skip the 2 slip stitches that we just made and you're going to work single crochets now through the back loop only. So a total of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. I always like to count because it is easy to lose a stitch if you don't keep track of your stitch count. So chain 1 and turn. We'll work single crochets through the back loop only back down the row. Okay, so there's 8. And here is our full stitch. I'm just going to slip stitch through the front loop only of the next 2. Turn, and then we just repeat, skip the slip stitches and then work single crochets through the back loop. So you're going to continue this all the way across the length of the bottom. So you're working the front, the back, all in one piece. So we have a long stretch. And you should have 1 row per stitch. So follow along with the size that you're working on. because that will vary depending on your size, and work all the way across. Okay, so once you have your ribbed band all done across the bottom, you're going to fasten off when you get all the way across. Then we're going to make sure we are on the right side. And we're going to start working on our collar. I'm going to be working with my smaller hook. So we're going to join to our front right down at our band. And we're going to start with our edge, which will be in single crochet. So we're going to chain one, work a single crochet in each stitch across the band. And then when we get to our half double crochet rows, we're going to crochet 3 single crochet per 2 rows. That will help you evenly space. So if you look at your rows, you just want to make sure that you're getting 2 or 3 single crochet for 2 of these rows. Okay, and you just want to make sure that your work's not pulling too much, that it's not too loose. That should keep you on track, but you can always adjust your stitches just so that you get a nice flat edge, that it's not pulling too much or it's not bunching too much. So I'm going to go ahead and work my edge, and then what we'll do is basically working our collar like we did the band, except we'll just be working it along this edge. But now I am going to also make buttonholes because I want to have some buttons, a button up for this style. But you can leave off the buttonholes, like if you just want it to be a more open style cardigan. So you want to pick your size button, and then I like to always add my first one right to the bottom edge. So you want to place your marker where it's going to roughly hit the center of that button. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then depending on how far you want to space them, I need to still grab some more buttons. So I don't, maybe about here. So what I do then is just count. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 stitches between my markers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then just keep going up and adding as many buttons for the length. So even if you've done this shorter, you can use the same method. Okay, so I've put about 6. I'll try it on just to make sure as well if I like the height of that last button. But let me show you how you'll do your band and then add in that buttonhole. So we're going to join back down to this right corner, and I am going to chain out 9, and then work single crochets, a single crochet in the second chain from the hook, in each chain. So just like we did the bottom band, I just want to show you how you're going to work a buttonhole. So you'll work a buttonhole every time you come to a marked stitch. Okay, so I'm skipping this. I'm going to slip stitch in the next two. So I'm going to go ahead and work my next 2 rows, and then I'll show you how to do that buttonhole. So I've come to a marker, and it's going to be the first row. So we'll slip stitch in the next 2. Going to turn, work skipping the 2 slip stitches, and I'm going to work 1, 2, 3. I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to skip 2 stitches, and then I'm going to work 3 in the back loop, chain 1 and turn, work a single crochet through the back loop of the next 3, and then 2 single crochet in the buttonhole, and then 3. So I'm going to double check my button now. So you can just adjust your chain space for the size of the button. So that works out perfectly for this size. And I believe this is a 25 millimeter. Oh, no, it is a 30 millimeter size button. So you're just going to continue this. You're going to work a buttonhole every time you get to a marker. And if you're not, just continue working that band all the way around. Next, once we get that complete, we'll make some pockets to finish off the cardigan. I also want to mention, if you wanted to add a hood, you could always work off these stitches. You could work from here, depending on how big you want your hood. I would maybe bring it down a little bit more and just work off. So if you were going to do a hood, you would just work back and forth in rows, making your rows as tall as you need it to fit over your head, slip stitch it together, and then you could continue with your band going around. If you find the band is a little wide for going around the hood section, you could always reduce your stitches. So instead of, as you work up here, you could start decreasing down from 8 stitches down to 4 stitches if you wanted to go around your hood, really whatever. I know sometimes I get asked that question, so I just wanted to add that little tip. You could always play around. Because I'm not making it myself, I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, so it is a little bit of a trial and error. I do have my color block cardigan that has a hood, if you want to take a look at that tutorial and look at that video, but it has more of your neckline that comes in like this. So I wanted to have an alternative neckline because some people don't want the hood. So this is a good style if you don't want a hood. If you want to check the color block cardigan out for that style with a hood, you can go check that video out, and I will link that in the description box below. So to crochet one of our pockets, we're going to start with our larger hook, our 6 millimeter, and I'm going to chain out a total of 21. Then I'm going to half double crochet in the second chain from the hook, but I'm going to turn it and work into the back bump of the chain. Okay, so you can see they're right here. If you're struggling with that, just work in the back loop of the chain. So I'm going to work across the back bumps of the chain in half double crochets so that I have a total of 20 stitches. I've worked across 20. I'm going to chain 1 and turn, half double crochet in the first stitch, half double crochet into each stitch across. chain 1 and turn, half double crochet in each stitch across. So I'm going to continue working this until I have a total of 14 rows. You can also alter the size of your pocket. If you want to make it bigger, just add more stitches, add more rows. Okay, so I've worked all the way across in 20 single crochet stitches. Now I'm going to change over to my smaller hook and I'm going to chain out 5. Then we'll single crochet in the second chain from the hook and in each chain across. We're going to skip the first stitch and then we'll slip stitch into the next 2. We'll skip over the slip stitches and single crochet through the back loop only. 4 stitches. Chain 1 and turn. Single crochet through the back loop only, 4 stitches. Slip stitch in the next 2. Okay, we're going to complete this working all the way across. And you'll want to make 2 pockets. And then we'll meet back up to sew them to the cardigan. Okay, so once you get that finished, we're gonna fasten off. Make sure to end up at the top so you have 20 rows crocheted. You want a nice long tail for sewing. So we can start sewing at the top and then work it all the way. So I'm gonna make sure I weave in this tail. And then I'll complete my second pocket. Okay, so I sewed on my buttons and now we're going to sew on the pockets. So just make sure to sew your buttons opposite sides your buttonholes. And what I like to do is try on the cardigan and sort of adjust where I want my pocket. So if you're a little on the shorter side, you may want it to come up a little bit higher. But for myself, just down slightly higher than the bottom ribbing is fine for me. So what I like to do is just center it on my front panel. And then I just use the tail from my pocket to go through part of the cardigan. Just make sure you don't sew through both sides. Just want to grab a small amount. And sew this on. So you're going to sew that all the way, and then for the other pocket, you just want to make sure that you do sew it to the same location So center it again, make sure that you're sewing it the same spot so it doesn't look off. And you can always wait to weave in your tail till you sew on both pockets and just make sure you've done it, you've done them evenly, because then you can always pull it back if you've made a mistake. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish mine, and then I'll meet you back up again. Okay, so once you get your pockets on, you can add a personalized tag if you want. I always like to sometimes add that to the side of a pocket. And I just use some leather rivets here to attach. And you can hammer that on. So you want to check the description box below the video and you will find the links for the pattern and the yarn that I've used. This is a nice, cozy, oversized fit. So if you want your sweater or your cardigan to be a little bit more fitted, you could always size down to the next size, but otherwise it's going to be a nice, cozy, oversized cardigan to snuggle up in. Thanks so much for watching the tutorial. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.